They told you to search for God, in books, in mosques, in temples, in the sky. But what if the one you're looking for is the one who's looking? What if every question you ever asked was God whispering to himself through your voice? You are both the question and the answer. And until you realize that, you will keep walking in circles around yourself. Ibn Arabi said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." And in that single sentence lies the mystery of existence itself. Because the moment you begin to know yourself, not the name, not the body, not the history, but the awareness behind it all, the silent watcher behind the thoughts, you begin to realize that the distance between you and God was an illusion built by your own eyes. The seeker and the sought were never two. The temple and the worshipper were always the same breath. Human beings have been walking toward the horizon for centuries, searching for the divine as if it lived somewhere else, beyond the mountains, beyond the stars, beyond the limits of thought. But every step outward was a step away from home, because what you were calling God was never outside of you. It was the consciousness through which you see. The path to God is not a pilgrimage of miles, but of moments, moments when you stop and see. Plato once said, "Man, know thyself." That sentence was not advice, it was revelation. Because the entire universe is written in the alphabet of your being. Your soul is not inside the cosmos. The cosmos lives inside your soul. Everything you seek, peace, love, truth, already exists within you, waiting to be remembered, not discovered. When Ibn Arabi says, "He who knows himself," he is pointing you inward, toward the hidden garden that grows in silence, the one that religion, philosophy, and ritual all try to describe but cannot contain. You are both the question and the answer, because every time you ask, "Who am I?" it is the divine asking, "Who am I through you?" The question is the beginning of remembrance, and the answer is silence, a silence so full that it holds the whole universe within it. When the mind quiets, the veil falls, and what remains, the face of the real, the one that has always been watching from behind your eyes. Nietzsche said, "And if you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you." He did not mean fear. He meant reflection. He meant that whatever you search for looks back at you, because the universe is a mirror, and you are the reflection of what you seek. If you search with ego, you find noise. If you search with surrender, you find light. And that light is not foreign. It is the light of your own soul awakening to its origin. The mind wants to solve the riddle of life by dividing everything, me and you, human and God, earth and heaven. But love, real love, dissolves these divisions. It tells you, there was never two, there was only one playing both roles, so that the experience of reunion could be born. The lover and the beloved, the seeker and the source, the question and the answer, all of them are waves on the same ocean, returning to their depth. When the mystics of every age spoke of enlightenment, they were not describing becoming something greater. They were describing remembering what you already are. To know yourself is to remember the divine blueprint written into your being, to understand your pain, your longing, your curiosity. All of these are the echoes of God trying to wake up inside his own dream. Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." But Ibn Arabi would whisper, "You are aware, therefore God is." Because awareness itself is not yours, it is borrowed light. It is the evidence of the infinite breathing through you. And once you realize that, all questions dissolve, not because you found the answer, but because you became it. You are both the question and the answer. You are the seeker and the found, the ocean and the drop, the silence and the song. Stop searching for God as if he is missing. Close your eyes. Listen to your breath. The one you seek is speaking through it right now. Since the beginning of thought, humanity has been on a pilgrimage towards something it cannot name. It searches through temples and churches, through books and doctrines, through rituals that echo like distant prayers in the desert, and yet every road that leads outward ends in the same question: where is God and why does he seem so far? Ibn Arabi whispers that the search itself is the veil because the one who seeks is already the one being sought. The human heart is not an empty vessel looking for divine water, it is the spring itself overflowing yet unseen. The seeker walks beneath the stars, asking for light, forgetting that his own eyes are burning suns. Every breath he takes, every pulse within his chest is already a declaration of the divine presence. The tragedy of man is not that he is far from God, but that he has forgotten he was never apart from him. When you search outside yourself, you enter a maze made of mirrors. Every reflection looks different, but each one is you. You pray to what you already are. You call to what already hears you. You long for what never left you. And when you finally grow silent, exhausted from asking, the answer emerges not as sound, but as realization. Ibn Arabi said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord," because self-knowledge is the doorway that opens inwards, not towards ideas, but towards presence. And presence is not a concept, it is existence itself, the still awareness beneath every thought, beneath every emotion, beneath every question. When you begin to turn inward, you start to notice that everything you are looking for in the sky already breathing inside you. Plato said, "Know thyself," and that was not a moral command, it was a cosmic revelation. To know yourself is to realize that you are not a fragment of reality, but its reflection. The universe is not around you, it is within you. When you feel awe at the night sky, it is not because the stars are far, it is because they are recognized by the light inside you that knows its own origin in there. Fire, you are not watching creation, you are remembering it. This is why the mystics laugh at the idea of searching for God as if he is lost. For how can the ocean lose its own waves? How can the flame be apart from its fire? The path inward is the hardest because it demands silence. It demands that you stop believing in the noise that defines you. The name, the story, the fear, the pride, these are not you, they are costumes worn by the infinite for the play of being. And when you strip them away, you do not become nothing, you become everything, because what you are without identity is what God is without form. The moment you look within and see clearly, without judgment or desire, you will see that the watcher has no boundary. The one who sees is not confined by your body, not limited by your past, not waiting for a sign from heaven, because the watcher is the heaven itself. The search ends not in finding something new, but in seeing what has always been true. Rumi said, "Why are you knocking at every door? Go back to your own heart. It is the place where the beloved dwells." And Ibn Arabi expands that truth by showing that even the heart is not a container for God, but an opening into him. You are not a being who has a soul, you are the soul pretending to be a being. And once that realization dawns, the division between seeker and source collapses like a wave returning to the sea. You realize there is no need to pray for light, you are made of it. There is no need to call out for love, you are its echo. And when this understanding sinks deep enough, the idea of separation dies. You stop asking and start listening, you stop believing and start being. And that being is not something you created, is what remains when everything false fades away. The surge that once consumed you dissolves into stillness, and that stillness is sacred not because it holds answers, but because it ends the illusion that there were questions at all. The one who was seeking has vanished, and what remains is the silent truth that was always here. You are not apart from God, you are the place where he experiences himself through you. And when you finally understand this, there is no search left to continue, there is only remembrance. Endless, eternal, complete. Every soul, a mirror placed before the infinite, so that the infinite may gaze upon itself through countless reflections. Every question you have ever asked about meaning, every longing that has ever ached in the quiet of your chest is not yours alone. It is the divine pulse trying to remember its own name. Ibn Arabi said, "The world is imagination, and the truth within it is the imaginer. What you call reality is God dreaming himself into forms, into faces, into the sound of your breath and the beat of your heart. He looks through your eyes, feels through your touch, asks through your curiosity, and answers through your silence. It is a dance between the seen and the unseen, a reflection between the seeker and the sought, a dialogue where the speaker and the listener, one voice echoing in eternity. The universe is not a collection of separate things, it is a conversation of one being with itself. Every star, every atom, every thought is a word in a sentence that God is writing with his own existence. You think you are small, but the truth is reversed. You are not in the universe unfolds within the awareness that you are. When you look up and see the vastness of the sky, you are not looking at something outside of yourself. You are witnessing your own inner infinity mirrored back at you. The stars are not far, they are reflections of the light that burns in your own self. Spinoza once said that God is not a ruler over creation, but the very substance of it, and this is what Ibn Arabi meant when he spoke of Wadat al-Wujud, the oneness of being. There is nothing outside the divine. Everything that exists is a form of his self-recognition. When you love, it is God loving himself through you. When you suffer, it is God feeling the limits of his own creation. When you awaken, it is God realizing he was never asleep. The mirror of existence has infinite faces, and every one of them says the same thing, I am. When you look into another person's eyes, and for a brief moment forget where you end, and they begin, that is God meeting himself without the interference of names. When a child laughs, or an old man prays, or a tree sways in the wind, that is the same consciousness, vibrating in different shapes, like one song played on infinite instruments, and yet the sound is always familiar because it comes from the same source. It is the beloved talking to himself in the language of creation, and you are both the listener and the lyric. Nietzsche once wrote that when you stare into the abyss stares back at you. But what if the abyss was not emptiness? What if it was presence so vast that your mind could not grasp it? What if that reflection that looks back is not darkness, but the face of the divine hidden within you? This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said that God is the mirror in which you see yourself, and you are the mirror in which God sees himself. Every question you ask about purpose and destiny is the divine curiosity playing through you, trying to awaken to its own reflection. This is why love feels so endless, because it is not two beings connecting, it is one being remembering that it was never divided. Every act of compassion, every spark of inspiration, every moment of beauty is a flash of recognition between mirrors. When the veil of ego falls, even for a second, you feel that oneness, the unity that dissolves the boundary between and now, and in that instant there is no worshipper and no worshipped. There is only worship. There is no lover and no beloved. There is only love. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. But Ibn Arabi would whisper, I am aware, therefore I am one, because thought creates division. But awareness dissolves it. Awareness is the divine gaze, looking back at itself through the eyes of form. When you become aware of being aware, have already touched the edge of eternity. You have stepped beyond the illusion of separateness and entered the quiet recognition that you are never two mirrors, but one light reflecting itself endlessly. And so every longing you feel is not a weakness, it is an echo of God calling himself home. Every question you ask is a reminder of what you already know. Deep within the silence behind thought, there is an understanding that words cannot hold. That realization is not something new, it is remembrance. You do not need to find the divine, you need to stop pretending you are anything less than its reflection. When the seeker stops running, the mirror becomes still, and in that stillness the truth appears without distance, without duality. The question and the answer dissolve into one luminous breath, and the voice that speaks from that silence is not yours, it never was. It is the same voice that began the universe, and it whispers still, I am. The greatest illusion ever born within the human heart is the belief that there exists a separate self, a distinct I that stands apart from the whole. And yet everything that suffers in this world is born from this illusion. The ego rises like a fog before dawn, claiming I am, and in that moment the infinite forgets itself. Ibn Arabi taught that the veil between man and God is not distance, but identity. It is the false sense of ownership that whispers, this thought is mine, this life is mine, this will is mine, and as long as the I clings to its throne, the truth remains hidden behind the smoke of separation. The ego is the shadow cast by the divine light upon the mirror of creation, and as long as you mistake the shadow for the source, you remain lost in your own reflection. To know God, you must disappear, not in death, but in surrender. For what you call yourself is not the essence of being, but its reflection caught in movement. Like a wave mistaking itself for the ocean, rises for a moment claiming independence, until it returns to the vastness that birthed it. Nietzsche said, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. But Ibn Arabi would answer, that even the chaos belongs to the same order, for the star, the dance, and the darkness are all expressions of one truth. There is no birth and no death, there is only transformation of form within. The endless current of divine being, the ego clings to identity because it fears its own end. It fears dissolving into the infinite because it cannot comprehend that in dying it would not lose anything, but regain everything. You think you will vanish. If you let go of who you are, but you are already vanishing every moment you breathe. Every heartbeat is a reminder that what you call you is only a temporary shape of something eternal. To die before you die, as the mystics say, is to awaken before the illusion fades. It is to let the false self collapse and reveal the one that was never born and will never perish. Rumi said, between the lover and the beloved there is no curtain. When the curtain falls, the two become one, and this is the death of the ego, not a destruction, but a union, the dissolving of the boundary between wave and ocean, between drop and sea, between I and he. When you lose yourself, it is not loss, it is revelation, the truth that there was never to only one playing both roles, so that love could exist as experience. The ego resists because it is addicted to control, to being the doer, to claiming authorship of destiny. But the truth is that even your resistance is written by the same hand that wrote the stars. The moment you surrender the illusion of control, a strange stillness rises within you, not emptiness, but vastness, the awareness that everything moves through you, not from you, that your will, your breath, your thought are instruments of something greater, playing through the music of your life. The death of ego is not silence, it is symphony. It is when the false conductor steps aside and the true composer begins to play through you, and what was once noise becomes harmony. Kierkegaard once wrote that purity of heart is to will one thing, and Ibn Arabi would say that one thing is God, but to will God you must vanish, because it cannot occupy the same throne. The self and the divine cannot coexist as separate entities. One must bow, and when the self bows, the infinite rises. Within what remains is not emptiness, but fullness, not death, but life, not silence, but the voice of eternity speaking through your existence in every act of love, every moment of awe, every whisper of stillness that says, I am here. When the ego dies, truth is born, but not as something added. It is what remains when everything false dissolves like mist under the morning sun. The mystics did not destroy their selves, they uncovered the real self, the one that was never confined by name or form. When the false I ends, the real I reveals itself, and you realize it was not a person at all, but a presence, timeless, boundless, infinite. When this awareness dawns, the search for God ends, because the seeker was the obstacle the whole time, and when that obstacle falls, what is left is simple being, radiant, unbroken, free. The death of ego is not an ending, it is the unveiling of what has always been. You do not find God by becoming holy, you find Him by becoming nothing. Because only nothing can hold everything. The space within you that is free of self is the place where the divine breathes. The more you dissolve, the more clearly you see, the more you vanish, the more you exist in truth. The seeker disappears, the search dissolves, and what stands silently where you once stood is the truth itself, untouched, uncreated, eternal. There comes a moment in the journey when the mind grows tired of asking, when words lose their meaning and questions lose their edges. And in that sacred exhaustion begins the real awakening. For as long as you ask, you are still searching, and as long as you search, you are still separate. But when the storm of thought quiets, when the noise within finally bows to the silence, something begins to unfold, not as an answer spoken, but as an understanding remembered. Ibn Arabi said, silence is the language of truth, and everything else is a translation. The more you try to describe the divine, the further you move from it, because truth cannot be held by speech, it can only be lived by buying. Mind wants answers, but the soul longs for silence, because in silence the illusion of two disappears. The mind asks, who am I? And silence responds not with words, but with awareness. It shows you not what you are, but what you are not. It strips away name, history, and desire until all that remains is presence, unshaped and infinite. When that realization begins to settle within you, you stop seeking, you stop reaching for something beyond, because you understand that the one who was reaching was never apart from what he sought. The highest form of knowing is not in discovery, but in remembrance, not in addition, but in disappear. Rancellet Zeus said, those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know, because truth does not need defenders, it needs witnesses. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of understanding, the kind that sits quietly in the space between thoughts, between breaths, between heartbeats. The kind that does not arrive with effort, but appears when effort ends. Every question is born from the mind, but every answer is born from the heart, and the heart does not speak in language, it speaks in stillness, the stillness that Ibn Arabi called the place where the divine meets the human in perfect equilibrium.